Please join me in saying, life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift.
Hi, and welcome to worship with First Church. My name is Chris Holton-Jablonski, and it is my great joy and my deep honor to work alongside so many incredible volunteers and leaders and so many wonderful staff. And today, we get to hear from three of them that we don't see all the time or listen to all the time. We have Lillian Anderson, our adult programs coordinator, Sam Foster, our membership director, and Cora McCold, our director of youth ministry. And they'll be sharing so much of the service and have created the service. And I'm so grateful to have them here today. And so grateful to have you here today. I want to lift up just a couple things before we get going. Today is the last day of our shared plate with the Partner Church program, so you'll be hearing about that a little bit later. But in particular, wanted to lift up our scholarship program that we have with our village in Deshvalva. For just $300, you can support a child for the entire year. Youth, young adult. For a big part of our partnership in the last 30 years has been making these scholarships available and really changing the lives of youth and young adults and their families and the entire village by making possible some secondary and beyond education for their children and youth. I know my family is participating the first time this year. We'll be supporting a youth, so if you can, any amount is wonderful. You can send a check to the church with scholarship in the memo line, and we'll know where to put it. So do please participate if you can. And then we also have still a few listening circles open. These have been incredibly helpful and fruitful opportunities to hear from one another, for the church, for all of you to hear from one another, and for the Committee on Ministry and me to hear about how this moment is for you, to hear about what you most love about the church, and to hear about some of your hopes and dreams for the future. So if you can, do please participate. And if you can't make it to any of the listening circles, I'm also always available. And I really do, I say it a bunch, but it really is my favorite part of ministry, connecting with you all and hearing about where you are, hearing about your lives, and especially hearing about what you love most about the church and what your hopes and dreams for the future are. Because really almost every wonderful thing that has happened at the church has happened because somebody like you had an idea just like the one that's percolating in the back of your mind and heart, and then sort of shared it, and then it became a thing. So do please reach out, come to a listening circle if you can, and then if you can't, feel free to reach out. I'm very much around. And that's it for now. So many wonderful programs starting. Do please dig in. One of the fascinating things about the listening circles is we've heard so many people who appreciate all the good stuff that's happening. Lots of new things. First Church Cooks is off to a wonderful start. 20 people more tuned in to each other's kitchens and cook together, which is just lovely. That'll be coming again in a few weeks. Our article discussion groups, our book discussion groups, social action groups, so much happening. So do please reach out if you have any questions. I can help you get connected, and so can all of the staff and leaders. But also read all the stuff that we're sending, or dig into it a little bit and see some of the good things that are happening. But for now, come, let us worship together. Your great mistake is to act the drama as if you were alone, as if life were a progressive and cunning crime with no witness to the tiny hidden transgressions. To feel abandoned is to deny the intimacy of your surroundings. Surely, even you at times have felt the grand array, the swelling presence, and the chorus crowding out your solo voice. You must know the way the soap dish enables you, or the window latch grants you freedom. Alertness is the hidden discipline of familiarity. The stairs are your mentor of things to come. The doors have always been there to frighten you and invite you. and the tiny speaker in the phone is your dream ladder to divinity. Put down the weight of your aloneness and ease into the conversation. The kettle is singing even as it pours you a drink. The cooking pots have left their arrogant aloofness and seen the good in you at last. All the birds and creatures of the world are unutterably themselves. Everything is waiting for you.
What does it mean to lead from the Spirit? How do we bring our best selves to leadership? And why is it important? In order to lead from the Spirit, we must first discover our best selves, our full humanness. And in order to do that, we must be willing to show our vulnerability and be willing to acknowledge our imperfections. When we are fully known and acknowledged, we can be fully present. We discover ourselves, our strengths and weaknesses, and when we are called to take a stand, a position that is difficult, one that might involve being bold and acknowledging that we have to change as a community, it can test us as individuals. Taking the risk to be fully present and known and allowing our own passion and conviction to speak will encourage each of us to step forward into spiritual leadership. Faithful risk-taking is the practice of aligning our Unitarian Universalist values with our passion in order to authentically speak or act. It reminds us that we have a powerful foundation of principles to rely on and that we are not alone in our struggle. When we face conflict or crisis or a difference of opinion, if we are known and valued as members of a spiritual community, we can risk articulating a controversial belief and still be held in that community. Our democracy as a nation and as an institution calls us sometimes to face hard truths about power, money, and decision-making. Our own Unitarian Universalist history has had moments of division and abdication of moral leadership. But the important lessons from our past are that we can examine and repair mistakes and missteps by addressing them now. One aspect of the Commission on Institutional Change report, which was released this year at the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly, shows how congregations can address issues of systemic racism and create structures that are more inclusive and welcoming. Our own First Church History Project is one way we might reflect on lessons from our past, with the possibility of creating a more responsive institution in the future. And the good news is that we don't have to do this alone. Working together, collaborating, and sharing responsibility helps to strengthen each of us by expanding our knowledge of different ways to approach tasks and problems. Most of the work we do as a faith community, whether it's in a committee, a project, a program, is really better when it is done with others. The process of collaboration helps us to create something bigger than ourselves. I found working with Sam and Cora this year on several programs has been such a blessing. While developing workshops on spiritual leadership and UU theology, each of us has discovered our strengths and weaknesses, and that has led us to develop a shared leadership model that we have really enjoyed. We have found in the process that we have opened ourselves to each other in new ways, which have allowed us to be more authentic spiritual leaders. Our collaboration has truly been a gift to each of us and to the congregation. The doorway to explore the possibilities of being together in shared spiritual leadership is open to all. Faithful risk-taking, being fully present, Discerning and acknowledging each other's gifts are all ways to empower us to forge our bonds in community and work together to strengthen First Church.
On a stormy day, the crab went strolling along the beach. He was surprised to see the lobster preparing to set sail in his boat. "Lobster," said the crab, "it is so foolhardy to venture out on a day like this." "Perhaps so," said the lobster, "but I love a squall at sea." "Well, I'll come with you," said the crab. "I will not let you face such danger alone." The lobster and the crab began their voyage, and soon they found themselves far from shore, and their boat was tossed and pushed by the turbulent waters. "Crab!" shouted the lobster above the roar of the wind. "For me the splashing of the salt spray is thrilling. The crashing of every wave takes my breath away." "Lobster, I think we're sinking," cried Crab. "Yes, of course we're sinking. The boat is full of holes," said the lobster. "Have courage, my friend. Remember, we are both creatures of the sea." The little boat capsized and sank. "Horrors! Oh, the horrors!" cried the crab. "Down we go!" shouted the lobster. The crab was shaken and upset. The lobster took him for a relaxing walk along the ocean floor. "Oh, how brave we are," said the lobster. "What a wonderful adventure we have had." The crab began to feel somewhat better. Although he usually enjoyed a quieter existence, he had to admit that day had been pleasantly out of the ordinary.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. It is time now. It is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
What does it mean to lead from the Spirit? When I watch the leaders at First Church and in our wider UU community, I think first of all that leading means listening. To lead from the Spirit means to listen from the Spirit, and spiritual listening is listening for the truth. What do I mean by listening for the truth? As someone who studies poetry for a living, I know that there is more than one way to read a poem. One way is to listen for the meaning. That's the familiar way in which we read most things in our lives: the daily newspaper, an instruction manual, a political speech, perhaps a sermon by our minister. We try to make sense of what we are being told, to grasp the meaning of the poem or the speech or the sermon. We have to understand the meaning of a thing before we can form an opinion about its truth. Whether we agree with what we read depends if we are being logical on what we have understood. We listen for the meaning first, and we infer the truth second. That's the natural order in which the human mind makes sense of the world most of the time. But occasionally the process happens the other way around. One of the strange things about a great poem, a poem that stays with us long after we read it or hear it spoken aloud, is that the truth of the poem arrives first, as it were. We are moved by the poem because we experience the force of its truth, even if we cannot exactly say what the poem means, or what it was about its language that moved us. This is a profoundly unlogical way of understanding anything, because logically we cannot decide if an idea is true or false if we cannot first explain what the idea is. Yet a poem, or a piece of music, or a great work of art will sometimes accomplish this mysterious sleight of hand. We are persuaded of its truth, but we cannot say what we think is true. I have a theory that a great artist has the ability to lead from the Spirit, and that leading from the Spirit means listening for the truth in everything that happens. When we listen to a poem, we are overhearing what the poet heard. We are being gifted with a truth that the poet knew to listen for, and that needs to be overheard through the keyhole of the words on the page or in the air. A poem is a whisper of the truth, whose precise meaning is sometimes lost in its passage from one room to another. We are not all artists, of course, but I think that what great art is telling us fundamentally is that we live most truly and bravely when we adopt that posture of listening in every moment of our lives. And we gain the assent of others in our community. We earn a place in their attention amid the noisy onrush of their daily lives. when we listen closely and purposefully for the truth, both in ourselves and in the world that we all share. Listening for the truth means listening for the undertone of grief and sadness underneath the cheerful words of your neighbour or your fellow committee member. It means listening for what is really being asked of you, between the lines as it were, when you are nominated for a position in the lay leadership of your congregation. It means listening for that jarring sound of a committee or a small group or a staff team that is stooping beneath the burden of something unsaid or undone. It means listening, really listening, to what your body and spirit are telling you when the atmosphere in the room changes and something seems wrong. And it means listening for the quiet note of truth about the human condition in the scriptures of the great religions, in the novels of Tolstoy, in the plays of Shakespeare, and in all the great writings from the past that we look to for wisdom and insight. Leading from the Spirit is something we can try to do in our work lives, our home lives, and our church lives, but I think we should try hardest in our church lives, because the selves we bring to First Church are our whole selves, or they ought to be. We all need to lead from the Spirit at First Church because we need to listen to what our fellow congregants are really telling us, by their actions if not their words. Because by joining a congregation of spiritual seekers, we made a commitment to care, to really care about the truth.
This is the time in our service where we invite forward an offering to help support the good work of the church, both within and beyond our walls, in the widest embrace of the church. This month, all month, we've been sharing our offerings with our partner church work, our partner church over in Deshvalva in Transylvania. And also, this month, we're inviting support for our scholarship program. So you can write a check and mail it to the church with scholarship in the memo line, and that'll be shared. We help so many generations now, 30 years into our long-standing partnership. We've helped so many families and individuals in the village get education. So anything you can do to support that is gratefully appreciated. And any support you can give to the church and to the partner church are wonderfully appreciated. So to give online, you can go to uubelmont.org/giving, and you can always send a check to the church as well. So we are deeply, deeply grateful for all you're about to give.
What does it mean to lead from the Spirit? One aspect for me of leading from the Spirit is centering in gifts, being grounded in the unique gifts that each of us brings to community. But what do we mean when we say gifts? Gifts are not necessarily time or money or energy, although these things are all important parts of community. But I mean gifts as natural, innate orientations that we have. Our gifts are expressed in the way we show up without even trying. You might have a gift, a natural orientation toward justice, toward welcoming, inclusion, or hospitality, toward storytelling, caring for others, making connections, listening deeply, taking risks, dreaming big, or noticing important details that others have missed. Sometimes your gifts might feel like spidey senses, like intuition. You just know what to do in the moment. When we share our gifts with others, it feels effortless, natural, even energizing, even if the context we're showing up in is challenging. Have you ever had someone tell you, "Wow, you make that look so easy"? Chances are you were centered in one of your gifts. But it's important to understand these gifts are distinct from skills or abilities, and they are not marketable. It's not our knowledge, it's not our intellect, it's not the things that we have learned or perfected that are our gifts. And in a culture that often cares more about marketable skills than our inherent worth or dignity, connecting with our gifts can be hard. We lack the words and skills as a collective to notice all the ways people share and deliver their gifts every day. Learning to discover gifts in ourselves and others takes intention and practice. Fortunately, we have a community to help with this. You may know that I live in a cooperative community in Cambridge. Most of the time there are 11 of us here, and we range in ages from 20 to 91. We're from different geographies, backgrounds, classes, persuasions, orientations. Over the 7 years that I've been in the community, we've tried several times to articulate the key mission or purpose that unites us. But sometimes it seems like the only thing we have in common is that we've agreed to live in this house together. Even though we struggle to put it into words, it has become clear that we each have a commitment to community, to contributing to something bigger than our individual selves. And over time, I have come to recognize and appreciate the varied gifts of my housemates and what they bring to our community. So what is the role of community in centering and celebrating one another's gifts? We must start by understanding that everyone has something of value to contribute. This means we welcome and make room at the table for everyone. Everyone has something important to bring. Second, we must take time to notice how others contribute to our shared community. By reflecting on what we value and appreciate in others, we can help them name and claim their gifts. It can be easy to let perfectionism or tradition get in the way of welcoming others' gifts. If someone suggests a new way of doing something, it's easy to have that knee-jerk reaction of, "No, we've already tried that, it's not going to work." But if we listen a little more closely, that suggestion might be the seed of someone offering their gift. Community also becomes the place where we can explore what our gifts are, where we're supported in trying new things, a place where we can get kind and compassionate feedback that helps us understand ourselves and our gifts a little better. But more than that, it's our responsibility as a community to welcome and receive each other's gifts. In fact, recognizing gifts in others, the unique contributions that everyone makes to community, is essential to living our UU principles. What better way to affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person than by acknowledging and affirming the inherent gifts that each person brings to community? I think community is a tapestry, and when we welcome each other's gifts, what we create together is more beautiful and vibrant than what we could do alone.
From the light of days remembered burns a beacon bright and clear, guiding hands and hearts and spirits into faith set free from fear. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the stories of our living rings a song both brave and free, calling pilgrims still to witness to the life of liberty. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When the fire of commitment sets our mind and soul ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
As members of this beloved community, let us join together on a path of spiritual leadership. May we listen deeply and mindfully to truths shared by others, especially those that are difficult to hear, and take comfort in sharing our own truths as well. May we discover gifts within ourselves that will build and sustain this community, and may we welcome, acknowledge, and be grateful for those gifts offered by others. May we celebrate our shared values and principles, but take the risk of opening ourselves individually and collectively to acknowledging mistakes made and hurts deeply felt. May we work together to make changes to become a more inclusive, welcoming, and supportive community of faith. As members of this beloved community, let us appreciate what is and look forward to what can and will be together. Amen.